When Governor Jellybelly signed the legislation to make assisted suicide the law of the land of Lincoln last week, he couched it as choice. He wrestled with it, listened to people of conscience who opposed it, characterized, by the way, opposition to it as exclusively faith-based, which it's not. As we discussed, professional medical associations like the AMA, which is not only secular, it's left, opposed it. But it's choice. It's giving people choice. And who could be against that? I mean, unless it's choice in their kids' education, of course. And now New York, Kathy Hochul, is moving in the same direction as you would expect she would. She's scheduled to make, I guess, some modifications to the language of the assisted suicide legislation in New York and make that the law of New York after the first of the year. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Wesley Smith, who is perhaps the most recognized intellectual opponent of assisted suicide. We've talked to him before, and unfortunately we have to talk to him again because of these developments. It's not unfortunate that we have to talk to you, Wesley. It's unfortunate the circumstances. I phrased that poorly, I guess. Wesley Smith, Senior Fellow at the Discovery Institute Center for Human Exceptionalism. Thanks for joining us, as always. Appreciate it.
Sounds like something my wife might say.
Yes. Unfortunately, I have to talk to Wesley again. This is a celebration of people's choice to prevent prolonged suffering at end of life, and who could be opposed to that?
Well, Illinois is now officially pro some suicides. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, this idea of, quote, MAID, M-A-I-D, that's a gooey euphemism. You've used the correct term, assisted suicide. Suicide means to kill yourself. Assisted means to receive help. So Illinois is now joining other states. And once New York's bill is signed, this is very rough, but about half the people of this country will live in jurisdictions that are pro some suicides. And then what will happen, Dan, because it's happened in many of the states that have already legalized, and certainly in countries that have euthanasia, is all of these guidelines you've been hearing about, to protect against abuse, will protect the vulnerable. As soon as the law goes into effect, the media will start telling stories of somebody who just wanted to die and couldn't access it. And very quickly, the quote guidelines that protect are redefined into obstacles. And the process of expanding eligibility will start. So what's happening in Illinois, and Governor Pritzker was always going to sign this bill, this idea that he, I sweated over it as baloney.
He wrestled with it. Oh, yes. Sure.
He wrestled with it. It's part of the progressive policy agenda, and he's running for president. But you're going to end up in a situation where the pressure will be on to expand eligibility. And one of the other opponents, by the way, groups that oppose it are, this faith-based idea is, of course, trying to marginalize opposition. Disability rights activists are the most vociferous opponents of assisted suicide. They're not faith-based, generally speaking, and certainly not the organizations. They're not politically conservative. They tend to be very politically liberal, very secular, but they know they're the ultimate targets. Because if killing is an acceptable answer to human suffering, what in the world does terminal illness have to do with it? There are a lot of people who suffer far longer and perhaps more extremely, the mentally ill, than people with terminal illnesses. And that's why you see throughout the world a process of expansion. So the real debate we should be having is whether there should be a fundamental human right to be killed or to have suicide if that's what you want. That's the ultimate destination of this agenda. They don't admit it, and it may not be the goal of some, but for example, in Germany, there is now a fundamental right to commit suicide and be assisted for any reason whatsoever, thanks to a court ruling. And the same thing is true in Estonia.
Well, of course, we had this discussion on my program with Father Robert Sirico from the Acton Institute, but I'll recount it here. when you say it's about choice, well, what's the limiting principle? Because, I mean,
Right.
you're saying it's my choice, and I'm describing my suffering, and I want to end the suffering, so I'm going to make this choice. So you use that. Oh, it's just for these diseases and not these other diseases. It's just for this feeling of despondency and not something. No. You said it's my choice. I'm the sovereign here. So how do you then redraw a line that you erased?
Right. And how do you justify suicide prevention? Illinois has just entered a cadre of people that can get assisted suicide, facilitated suicide, but these people who are suicidal, like any other suicidal person, will not be offered suicide prevention. And by the way, the law also requires all doctors in your state to be complicit in assisted suicide. Because while there is a conscience protection where the doctor does not actually have to write the prescription, as I read the law, I read these aspects very carefully. Every doctor who's asked for assisted suicide will have to, it says shall, judge whether that patient is qualified, 6 months or less to live. And also, if they refuse to write the prescription, they have to be complicit by finding a doctor they know will write the prescription. So the conscience protections that are supposedly protecting doctors from having to violate the Hippocratic Oath are really half, you know what.
Yeah. There's this, I don't think I think a lot of people can't conceive that people actually want to get rid of people they think are not viable economically. It would be better if they weren't here. I think people don't think that is a real thing, and it is a real thing. There's this essay that was written by Harriet McBride Johnson about 20 years ago. She's a legal scholar who is disabled due to a neuromuscular disease, or was. She talked about her personal relationship with Peter Singer, who is the Princeton bioethicist who believes in infanticide. I mean, truly,
Yes.
He does.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, and you can speak to that, better than I. In her essay, Harriet McBride Johnson, she's a legal scholar. She's got a neuromuscular disease, but she was a legal scholar. She writes, he insists he doesn't want to kill me. He simply thinks it would have been better, all things considered, to have given my parents the option of killing the baby I once was, and to let other parents kill similar babies as they come along, and thereby avoid the suffering that comes with lives like mine, and satisfy the reasonable preference of parents for a different kind of child. He is willing to follow the logic of the arguments in favor of abortion all the way to support for assisted suicide for the same reason, that it is strictly about utilitarianism for the individual or for the parent in the case of abortion.
Right. And it's not just theoretical. Singer is, of course, the world's most prominent moral philosopher, which in his case is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But in the Netherlands, they actually do commit infanticide. There's it's something called the Groningen Protocol, Groningen. People can look it up, where if a baby is born with a serious disability or a terminal illness, doctors lethally inject them in their bassinets. And that is part of the euthanasia policy in the Netherlands. The same thing is true in Belgium. In Canada, which has jumped into down the euthanasia cliff with a smile on its face, they're now talking about euthanizing children. It's not yet legal there. And they also are talking about allowing what they call mature minors, whatever that means, to decide for euthanasia on their own without their parental involvement. So once you unleash this tiger, it runs amok and it begins to expand because, as you pointed out, there is a logic here. Human beings are a logical species, and we take principles where they lead. And where this leads is to death on demand.
Yeah, and the experience you mentioned in Germany, Canada, it's sort of the same story. We've heard some, you mentioned mature minors, people who are depressed,
Yep.
mental, a potentially a fleeting mental challenge and not anything that is permanently debilitating, but nonetheless, MAID is at your service.
Right. And then you begin to say, well, gee, these people are going to die. Let's get some good use out of them. And you start conjoining euthanasia with organ harvesting. That is happening in the Netherlands. People who are mentally ill in the Netherlands can go to a hospital, be killed in the hospital, wheeled next door into a surgical suite and have their organs harvested. The same thing is true in Belgium. In Canada, in the province of Ontario, if a doctor says, I'll kill you, the doctor then calls the organ procurement organization, which calls the patient and says, can we have your liver? It objectifies people. It destroys their equality. And once you create a killable caste of people, they are deemed as less equal than people whose lives are supposedly being protected.
Right. I mean, I think this is the kind of thing Flannery O'Connor was talking about when she famously observed that tenderness leads to the gas chambers. This is all done. Well, this is what it is. I mean, but that's what it is. I mean, this is all done. This is all invoked as particularly compassionate and empathetic and tender. I care so much about you. I would like to give you the option to kill yourself and even encourage you to do it at some point.
Right. And the advocates for this, because they know the United States is still resisting more than places like Canada or the Netherlands, Germany, and so forth. They will say, but it's just about the terminally ill for whom nothing else can be done to alleviate suffering. But realize that most people who ask for euthanasia or assisted suicide, study after study has shown this, don't do it because of pain that can't be treated. They do it for existential issues, things like worries about being a burden, so that people are willing to put themselves out of their loved ones' misery. Worries about being unable to engage in enjoyable activities. These are very important issues, but they need to be addressed with care. The whole hospice movement, I was able to interview Dame Cecily Saunders, who created the modern hospice movement. Suicide prevention was as important as she envisioned hospice as pain control. Because I asked her, I said, what about assisted suicide? And she said, that denies the equal dignity of my patients. It's like saying, okay, you see somebody about to jump off a bridge. No, life is worth living. He says, I've got cancer. And you say, oh, well, let me hold your coat. You're saying that person's life isn't worth living.
Yeah, I mean, it's gallows humor, but right. The other thing, too, is I just find it's so unnecessary for the state to come in and sanction this. Talking about end-of-life care, you're of sound mind and body. You can make your own decisions about end-of-life care. You have DNR orders and the like, and you do that in consultation with your doctor and family and so forth. So, I mean, I agree this should be I think it should be a private matter. And interestingly, of course, those who champion privacy and choice are insinuating the institution that has a monopoly of force to more than just provide for, to ultimately, as we see it play out in practice, to encourage, even incentivize.
Well, eventually it becomes normalized, because you'll also have the media start to depict wonderful suicide parties and so forth. So a lot of your
heroic suicide.
Yeah, exactly. We all gather while the person commits suicide. Now, a lot of your listeners may face that conundrum. Let's say Grandma Jones has cancer and has 5 months to live, and you get a call from your sister saying, well, she's decided she's doing it Tuesday. We want you to be there. If you go, you're complicit in Grandma Jones' suicide. If you don't go, you're abandoning Grandma Jones. It's going to put the entire population of Illinois at a potential serious conflict.
Wesley Smith, Senior Fellow at the Discovery Institute Center for Human Exceptionalism. Wesley, thanks for joining us again. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Dan, and Merry Christmas to you.
And Wesley Smith joined us on the Turnkey.Pro Answer Line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If you or someone you love are getting high quotes for dental implants, visit almostfreeteeth.com today. With a medical PPO insurance plan, it's possible to save 90% off on average to be able to smile again. Check if you qualify now at almostfreeteeth.com.
I'm Rob Cole, owner of Cole Digital in Frankfort, specialists in smart home design and installation.